Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're gonna, virtually tour Silicon Valley real estate, a market that's hotter than ever.
Oh, yeah.
And we know some of you listening out there are thinking about buying your first place. Trust me, the stories coming out of this market are wild. Think bidding wars that make Black Friday look tame, and homes selling for like hundreds of thousands over asking price.
Yeah. It really is fascinating. We're seeing active listings down a whopping 18.2% year over year,
Wow.
which means, less than 2 months of inventory is available. And just to give you some context, a balanced market typically has around 6 months.
Wow. So it's a real estate Hunger Games out there, and everyone's fighting for a piece of the Silicon Valley dream.
Yeah.
What's causing this inventory crunch?
Well, there are a few key factors at play. Remember those incredibly low mortgage rates we saw during the pandemic?
Oh, yeah.
Well, many homeowners, they lock those rates in.
Right.
And they're hesitant to sell and face the much higher rates they'd encounter today if they were to buy a new home.
So they're holding on to those golden tickets.
Exactly. It creates, this bottleneck where existing homes just aren't coming onto the market. Then on the supply side, construction simply isn't keeping pace with the demand.
Yeah.
We're talking about a perfect storm of strict zoning regulations,
Oh, wow.
inflated material costs, and a shortage of skilled labor.
So it's not just about people not wanting to sell, but also about the difficulty in building new homes to meet the demand.
Precisely. And then there's, the added layer of economic uncertainty. Some potential sellers are holding back, waiting to see how things play out in the larger economy before they make a move.
So we've got low inventory, we've got persistent demand, creating this hyper-competitive market. What does this mean for someone like you listening who's actually thinking about buying a home in Silicon Valley right now?
Well, you need to be prepared for a challenging journey.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking intense competition, bidding wars that can drive prices up significantly, and the possibility of offering like well above the asking price just to be in the running.
It's definitely not a market for those who are easily intimidated.
I can imagine, especially, as a first-time buyer, it can be a bit overwhelming. What are some practical steps someone can take to navigate this crazy market?
Well, I mean, preparation is key.
Yeah.
First and foremost, get pre-approved for a mortgage.
Right.
Knowing exactly what you can afford gives you a, realistic starting point. Next, find yourself a seasoned real estate agent who truly understands the intricacies of the Silicon Valley market.
Right.
They can guide you through the process, help you craft competitive offers, and negotiate effectively on your behalf.
So it's about having a strong team in your corner
Oh, yeah.
who can help you strategize and stay ahead of the game.
Absolutely.
Now let's shift gears and talk about the sellers. It's a seller's market, right? They're basically sitting pretty.
It is indeed a seller's market. There is high demand and the potential for significant profit.
Right.
However, it's not as simple as slapping a for sale sign up and watching the offers roll in. Right. I imagine there's still a need for, strategy and planning even in a market like this.
Absolutely. Strategic pricing is critical.
Mhm.
Overpricing can scare away potential buyers even in a hot market like this.
Yeah.
Presenting your home in the best possible light is also essential. Think professional staging and high-quality photography.
Yeah.
Even in a seller's market, first impressions matter.
So sellers need to be smart about maximizing their advantage.
Yeah.
Not just assuming that the market will do all the work for them.
Exactly. And just as buyers need a skilled agent,
Right.
sellers also benefit from expert guidance.
Yeah.
A good agent can help them navigate multiple offers, negotiate strategically, and ensure a smooth closing process.
Okay, so we've got buyers gearing up for battle and sellers working to capitalize on the hot market. But what about investors? Where do they fit into this Silicon Valley real estate saga?
Well, investors are a fascinating piece of this puzzle.
Okay.
They're always searching for opportunities, even in a seemingly challenging market like this.
Right.
And what's interesting is they're getting incredibly creative, thinking outside the box of traditional single-family homes.
Now, that's what I call a deep dive.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what these investors are up to.
Well, some investors are focusing on distressed properties.
Okay.
Those fixer-uppers with potential that might scare off the average buyer.
Right.
They purchase these properties at a lower price, invest in renovations,
Yeah.
and then either flip them for a profit or hold on to them as rental properties.
That's a smart move, especially with inventory being so low. They're basically creating their own inventory in a way.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it addresses a need in the market by bringing older, neglected properties back to life.
Yeah.
Other investors are looking beyond single-family homes and exploring multifamily properties or even the potential of converting commercial spaces into residential units.
That's a whole other level of innovation. This could be relevant for you down the line, especially if you're considering long-term investments.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the unique dynamics of the market and identifying those niches where you can capitalize on the current conditions.
It seems like even in a market that appears daunting on the surface, there are opportunities for those willing to be adaptable and strategic.
Exactly. However, we can't forget about the renters who are caught in the crossfire of this superheated market. Fewer people buying inevitably leads to more people renting.
So it's a tough situation for renters to be in,
Yeah,
with more competition for fewer available units, all while facing rising rental prices.
right. It's a classic example of supply and demand at play. And unfortunately, it puts immense pressure on renters,
Mm.
particularly those searching for affordable options.
This really highlights the need for more diverse housing solutions in the region, doesn't it? Something has to give eventually to address this growing imbalance.
Absolutely. And that's where we start to see glimmers of hope on the horizon.
Okay.
While the low inventory is a reality we have to deal with in the short term, there are efforts underway to ease the situation in the long run.
Okay, tell me about these glimmers of hope. What's being done to address this housing crunch?
Well, for one, local governments are finally recognizing the need for more housing density and flexibility. They're beginning to reassess those restrictive zoning regulations that have been limiting development for years.
So it's like the market is trying to catch its breath
Yeah.
and find a more sustainable rhythm, but it's going to be a long process.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But we're also seeing some genuinely innovative housing solutions emerge, like co-living spaces and modular homes.
Mm.
These concepts can address both the affordability issue and the need for a higher volume of housing units.
So there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
However, while these solutions gain traction, buyers, sellers, investors, and renters all need to be prepared to navigate this challenging landscape in the meantime. Any final words of wisdom before we move on to part two?
Um, Knowledge is power. Stay informed about market trends, work with experienced professionals, and don't be afraid to explore unconventional solutions.
Great advice. So to recap, the Silicon Valley housing market is a bit like a pressure cooker right now. Low inventory, high demand, and a whole lot of action. But remember, challenges often breed innovation, and we're seeing that play out in fascinating ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, this market is a prime example of that. And
Yeah.
we're seeing creative solutions emerge from individuals, developers, and even policymakers.
It's not just about surviving this market, but about understanding how it's evolving
Right.
and what that means for the future of Silicon Valley as a whole.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting.
Yep.
This housing crunch isn't just an economic issue. It has, social and cultural implications that ripple through the entire community.
Now you're talking my language. Break down those implications for us.
Well, for starters, when housing becomes scarce and expensive, it directly impacts the diversity of a community.
Right.
People who can't afford to live there, especially those in lower income brackets, are often forced to move out,
Yeah.
leading to a potential brain drain and a loss of cultural richness.
It's like a ripple effect, changing the very fabric of the community
Yeah,
and potentially widening the gap between those who can afford to stay and those who are priced out.
precisely. And this raises questions about the long-term sustainability of a tech hub like Silicon Valley.
Right.
If the teachers, nurses, service workers, and artists who contribute to the vibrancy of the region can no longer afford to live there,
Yeah.
what does that mean for the future?
It's a crucial question that policymakers and industry leaders are grappling with.
Yeah,
How can we ensure that Silicon Valley remains a place where a diverse range of talent can not just survive, but thrive?
that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It requires a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
We need to think about housing affordability, transportation, infrastructure, and social equity. All these factors are interconnected.
It's about finding that delicate balance between economic growth and the well-being of the people who make that growth possible.
Yeah.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important to have these conversations. Right. To shed light on the complexities and explore potential solutions.
Right, because it's not just about understanding the market in a vacuum.
Yeah,
It's about understanding the impact it has on real people's lives.
absolutely.
And at the end of the day, that's what matters most.
I completely agree. Now, before we wrap things up, I wanted to leave you with something to ponder. We've talked a lot about the challenges of this market,
Okay.
but let's flip the script for a moment. What about the opportunities?
Ooh, I like where this is going. Tell me more.
Well, Think about all this innovation we're seeing.
Right.
The co-living spaces, the modular homes, the creative financing models emerging.
Yeah.
It's like the market is forcing people to get resourceful
Hmm.
and come up with new solutions.
It's fascinating to see how necessity can drive innovation.
Exactly. And this resourcefulness could lead to breakthroughs that benefit not just Silicon Valley, but the housing market as a whole.
So it's about looking beyond the immediate crisis
Mm.
and recognizing the potential for positive change that can emerge from these challenges.
Precisely. And that's where I think the real excitement lies. Because who knows?
Mm.
The solutions that emerge from this challenging market might just revolutionize the way we approach housing and community development in the future.
That's a powerful thought. And it leaves me feeling cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Despite the challenges, there's a sense of resilience and innovation in the air.
Absolutely. And that's what makes Silicon Valley such a fascinating place to observe, even amidst a red-hot housing market.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the Silicon Valley real estate scene. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final question to ponder. We've talked about the economic and social implications of this housing crunch.
Yeah.
But what about the environmental impact?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Think about it. As housing prices soar and people are pushed further and further away from urban centers, what happens to commute times, traffic congestion, and ultimately carbon emissions?
It's a complex issue with far-reaching consequences.
Right.
And it's definitely something worth exploring further. Perhaps we could even do a whole deep dive on the environmental impacts of housing trends in the future.
Absolutely. So, dear listener, we leave you with that food for thought. Stay curious, stay informed, and join us next time for another deep dive into a topic that matters to you. Until then, happy house hunting, selling, investing, or just plain surviving in this crazy market.
And remember, even in a market as heated as Silicon Valley's, informed decisions and a bit of creativity can go a long way.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time. Okay, so we've covered, like, a lot of ground in our Silicon Valley real estate deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've seen how low inventory and high demand are creating this, like, hyper-competitive market that's impacting, like, buyers and sellers and investors and renters alike.
It's a dynamic situation with, challenges and opportunities kind of around every corner.
Right. And we've talked about the need for strategic pricing and the importance of working with, experienced professionals and the rise of creative solutions like distressed property renovations
Yeah.
and the conversion of commercial spaces into residential units.
Absolutely. And, we even delved into those broader social and economic implications of this housing crunch,
Right.
exploring how it's impacting, affordability, diversity, and even the long-term sustainability of the region as a tech hub.
And we even, briefly touched upon the environmental impact of these housing trends,
Right.
raising questions about commute times and traffic congestion and the overall carbon footprint as people are pushed further and further away from urban centers.
Absolutely.
It's clear that the Silicon Valley real estate market is, more than just numbers and transactions.
Yeah.
It's like a microcosm of larger trends and challenges facing, many urban areas across the country and even globally.
It really is. And it's a story that continues to evolve. What's happening in Silicon Valley today could offer valuable insights into the future of housing and urban development
Right.
as we grapple with issues of affordability, sustainability, and community well-being.
So as you navigate your own, real estate journey, whether you're buying or selling or investing or simply seeking to understand, the forces at play, remember this.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Stay informed, stay curious, and don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Right.
The solutions that emerge from these challenging times could shape the way we live and work for generations to come.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the heart of Silicon Valley's red-hot real estate scene. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time for another insightful exploration of a topic that matters to you.